I also realized from your video that when you talk about the incel community, you talk about them pretty monolithic, right? In a pretty monolithic way. I mean, that's kind of normal because you have had experience with a certain community. And if you say they, obviously, you always think about one pool of people that you have met, right? Like concrete people, real people, not like they in a sense of an outside observant, but they in a sense of people that you
Uh,
really engage with, right?
when you mean monolithic, do you mean that it seems like I'm talking about them as one singular group or as a large singular group? Because
As a large singular group that mainly feels and judges you or other people the same, because I heard like a lot of you've talked about appearances, and for example there is this idea that if you are not below a certain body fat percentage, then you're not even an incel. Like that's like, I think, a belief that I heard many times. And in the moment that you are able, for example, if you're not happy with your face but you're not at 17% body fat, then you always have possibilities to look max through losing weight and stuff like that, so you're not even considered an incel. There's like thousands of things like that, like uh somebody would be called a fake cell because they're another ethnicity, and if they go in their country they're not going to be an incel and stuff like that. So it feels like a lot of like many different. I don't feel like the incel community is united on if they would call you an incel or not. I think there would
the
be a huge amount of people that would not call you an incel.
the incel community is united in calling themselves incels. It's a it's a community that um I will consider it a cult because it's kind of like a self-harm cult where people go in to get an ideology to comfort them, but that ideology doesn't really do anything to comfort them, but they still want to be part of that community, that part of that ideology, and so they will twist almost any definition that they want within a certain set of parameters, I would say, so that they can continue to call themselves an incel. So there could be a person currently in an incel group who is exactly like me, but he can twist his words to call himself an incel in a way that wouldn't apply to me, if that makes sense. Because you were talking about fake cells and all the other incel subgroups. That's kind of how they would twist things. And towards the end of my research for the video, one of the things I stumbled upon was the term chat cell. I'm not sure if you've heard of it.
Yeah, I've heard of it. Yeah.
Yeah, so that was, I think, the clearest way to explain how this works, because like there I found three different definition of chat cells and none of them are complementary. They cannot work together. Like one of them will be about uh, chats, guys who are so good looking that they are out of reach of any other partners, basically out of everyone's league. And they are incels because they are too good looking, and that's why they are chat cells. But at the same time, there's another definition of chat cell where is good looking people who already had partners and choose to identify as incels because they want to be part of a community. And that's also a definition of chat cell. And it doesn't really gel, all the definition just can't match together. And they will keep twisting definitions like this so that they can.
But I think I have to disagree there a little bit, to be honest, because
Mm,
uh it it doesn't feel to me like, if you talk about incels, it doesn't feel like a cult. Like it feels like many small cults. Like that might be, I'll be up for that, but it doesn't feel like overall, it doesn't feel like a, a, it doesn't qualify to me for a cult. First of all, one of the reasons is because I feel like they do the opposite. You were talking about recruiting. You were saying, I think you said automatic recruitment, and you were there already acknowledging that they're not actively like looking for other incels to put in their community. Actually, as a matter of fact, it feels like they don't want any more members. Like it feels like they're going out of their way to say that other people are not incels, which is like a huge part of the dialogue. I've heard it now so many times that people are being like pushed out of the community because they're like accused of not actually being uh, incels, like
Yeah,
not
correct.
actually qualifying based on whatever the cultish definition of this small fringe group there is, right?
Mm.
So is that what you meant by they're not actively recruiting? They're like just people like just stumble in there basically.
Yeah, people basically stumble in there. But we have to remember that incel is basically, um, at least the way their ideologies are presented, is kind of a uh, fascist group. And the thing with fascism is that you always end up trying to tunnel people into the one true fascist. There's only going to be one true race. There's only one true incel. So slowly
Maybe
they'll
can we I'm always having really big difficulties grasping the word fascism because it can mean so many different things.
right.
Maybe authoritarian or
No, I would
uh
define it as fascism in the sense that it's its fine its finality is that there is one path. There's only one true path, which is, I think during my video I've constantly mentioned the idea of the true incel, the one true incel. I think I jokingly call it Captain Incel. Um, the idea that there is only one type of people that can be incel, and you enter this group feeling like an outcast. You're not part of normal society. So instead, you want to be this group that has a high degree of seeming like individuals. But because the more you want to be an individual, the more you try to separate yourself from others, the more you try to be different. So slowly, um, lesbo cells are no longer considered incels. Slowly, chat cells are not incels. Slowly, Indian cells are not considered incels. You will slowly cut away all the different cell groups
so
until your
mhm.
your incel, is the one true incel. So that's why I call it a fascist cult, because you do end up being
Sorry,
pipelined into a,
but,
sorry, yes.
but when you say fascist, like you mean that there is a literally a um racist component baked into the incel ideology. That's what you mean, right?
I would say it's a supremacist component, but the
But based on race.
supremacist is not based on race. It will be more
Oh, okay.
based on a innate characteristic trait. Like, um, I am. This is the premier definition of incel. So,
Hmm.
um, you would end up calling that final point the true incel, and everyone who wants to join will slowly be pushed into that. So
Hmm.
it's a supremacist idea
Hmm.
based on a non-supremacist um, individualization, I would call it, because it's not exactly a good thing to be. Uh,
Yeah, yeah.
being, yeah. So it's kind of like how kids would like to, they think that being, sometimes when you're young, you think that, oh, being um, sad and emo, as they would used to call it, is cool. So there's this idea that you would being an incel is cool when you're in the incel community. It gives you uh, friends in your chat rooms and
Okay,
forums.
yeah. Before we go in there, because that's also something I would really like to ask you a lot of stuff about the feeling of being in a group and having a certain community. But before we go there, in there, I would like to stay with the fascistic aspect that you were talking
Mm,
about. So I am, to me, it feels like the incel community is not really, like, in a broad sense, there is not much, like, the whole idea behind black pill, I think, is really highly correlated with the whole, with everything we're talking about right now. Like with incels and black pill is like really really highly like really big connection there. So I think the idea there is the true, really true incel is like white, straight, uh not fat. um that's like the true incel, and when he then is not able to get any romantic partner, then he is a true incel. That's the feeling I get, and the reason for that is that all the other people that are not that are not white, that are not straight, that are not skinny and not a certain, that they have an excuse basically, right? So they say, okay, you are uh, Chinese, and Chinese people are not in the hierarchy of races in the society. They're
mm.
really low. So if you could go to another country, if you would go to China, then you would not be in that hierarchy. So I think that's the reason behind it, and I don't see that as them being racist. I see that as them seeing racism in society. Like, just logically, they might as well be racist, but just logically, I think racism doesn't directly follow there. Because if I have that feeling that society is like that, and there is some evidence that society is has racial preferences when it comes to dating, right?
Mhm.
So especially like when you're like, I was born and raised in the Western society. I'm not looking Western, and like that of course that society has different way of approaching you a little bit. Like, it's just, yeah. So I don't see the direct inherent fascistic ideology in the way they see society.
Ah, give me a moment to
Sure.
collate the others. All right. So I think the first misconception might actually be the way fascism is defined. Yeah. I think you're thinking about fascism in the like Nazi sense, as a racial supremacist or a supremacist group.
That's why I'm scared of using the word. So that's why, yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Um, and I think the second mistake might actually be thinking that incel is a it's in the name, like incel, the cell. Sometimes they call it like a cell group. Like it's not exactly like say a church or a religious grouping or even say a political group. It's decentralized. There's no leader, um there's no one supreme ruler or anything like that. But it's fascism in the sense that it promotes uh an individual supremacist idea. And it doesn't even have to promote it for the benefit of its community because it's not a good thing to be an incel. There's a kind of self-harming poison to calling yourself an incel. It's promoting the idea that the as you said, white, heteronormal, handsome, good-looking, X amount of body fat. That um, is the ideal. It's promoting that as the ideal,
But
and that's
that's
why.
based on
It's
their observation of what society thinks, right? That's not th- they don't think that, like, that's not baked into inceldom that they think that, right?
you can
But it,
think of it as incels as in a way that's like they have been gaslit to think that they are not a supremacist group, but they believe in a supremacist
yes,
ideology.
yes.
So that is the fascistic part, because they are being taught fascism as if they were the victims of, as if they were the so-called, what's the opposite of beneficiary? The losers
uh
in the
yeah,
fascism
yeah,
game, if you would, you know.
yeah.
So
But
it is still teaching fascism. It
it
is
wouldn't that
still sorry.
also count for if I, as a non-Western looking person in Europe, uh, say that the for my society I'm not the optimal. I don't have the optimal looks to, I don't know, get a job or something like that, or like that there is a better look than mine to get a job or get a place to rent or get a cab or something like that. That's like, would that also would make me promote fascist ideology?
Um, I don't think so. I think it's more like
Why
they're
not?
trying to, mm, because in at least in the incel groups, you're kind of taught to find faults instead of anything right. Like you're trying to find reasons why you are not perfect. Um, and because there is this supremacist ideal underlining it, you tend to end up being fascistic in the end. There's just it's like a pipeline. You can go there. It's very easy to go there, and a lot of people in the community do end up going down pipeline. Uh, being Nazis, outright racial supremacists, just by just by being exposed to the idea. It's more
I
like
mean, I agree,
yes.
I agree there. I agree there 100% that it's a very easy path from going, yeah, from but I think still I don't think that's coming from incel ideology directly. I think that's like when you realize that your society is like racist, and uh that can and you believe that you're the loser of that, or if you think that your society is superficial and you're the loser of that, and your society is sexist and you're the loser of that in some way, it's really easy to make you like, if you look at all the narratives of fascism, it's always putting giving, like when you look at the fascism in Western Europe or to immigration, that is like around the whole immigration things, like it's always like accusing the other people of, it's basically always portraying yourself as a victim. Like the moment you have your victimhood, that's a really easy way to go to fascism. But I don't think that's unique to inceldom. And
Yeah, I would not think it's unique to Inseldom. I think what's unique to Inseldom is that they are trying to make these racial differences, societal racial differences, seems like a scientific fact. They are trying to make it's a level of eugenics. You know, the whole body fat thing is really very eugenicsy,
mhm.
and they're trying to make it seem like yes, it's like this because that's just science.